There are still so many unknowns about how this virus is transmitted, how it attacks the body, and why some people die and others show no symptoms. We all want answers, but what we've got right now are lots of questions. Tonight, we explore some of the big ones. We'll keep living in this new reality with the threat of the virus lurking as long as it keeps outsmarting us. It's still moving faster than our best scientists, leaving us chasing many unknowns. Even one of America's most experienced infectious disease experts, Dr. Anthony Fauci, who has studied HIV and Ebola, says the novel coronavirus is his worst nightmare.
Like, oh my goodness, when is it going to end? It really is very complicated. So we're just at almost the beginning.
Among the biggest questions is who? Who has it?
How many people have actually been infected? We don't know that at all.
The mystery of the asymptomatic, the so-called silent spreaders, is confounding. People infected with the virus who never show any symptoms and could be fueling the pandemic without knowing it.
One of the reasons why COVID has been such a successful virus, it's able to fill people's lungs and have them expel that and spread it without feeling sick. In that sense, it's one of the most frightening viruses that I could think of.
Frightening and the subject of intense debate. On Monday, a top doctor at the World Health Organization seemed to dismiss asymptomatic spread.
It still appears to be rare that an asymptomatic individual actually transmits onward.
By Tuesday, after pushback from many epidemiologists, she clarified what she meant.
What we need to better understand is how many of the people in the population don't have symptoms, and separately, how many of those individuals go on to transmit to others.
It's perplexing and needs much more research, but some initial studies show between 25 to 45% of infected people have no symptoms.
Ticket R004.
Doctors in Canada are noticing it.
Hi, I'm Dr. Nimji.
Tasleem Nimji is an emergency room physician at Humber River Hospital in Toronto.
So first of all, have you had any fevers?
Fever, no.
No fever, chills.
Every patient who arrives here is screened for COVID-19 symptoms.
So whenever we see a patient, we're thinking about the different potential diagnoses. Now, COVID-19 is a part of almost every one of those lists of possibilities that you're thinking about in your head when you're trying to help a patient, because it presents in different ways, and because we know that there are people that don't have any symptoms related to COVID-19, at least not on our typical list of symptoms, that will still test positive.
Patients who come in for other reasons with no apparent COVID symptoms are testing positive.
It's a virus that's unpredictable. Some patients have no symptoms, and we've seen that. Like, we've been surprised with some patients that came in with a hip fracture and have no symptoms of COVID at all, but are positive.
It's still believed people who are most infectious are those with serious respiratory symptoms, but the possibility of silent, invisible spread persists and will only be revealed through widespread, repeated testing.
If you just rely on testing people who come forward with symptoms, you're going to miss a very large number of people with the disease, and they're the ones driving community spread. A huge chunk of this is getting a hold of people who are transmitting before they know they're transmitting.
In what ways is COVID-19 attacking the body and confounding doctors? In the ICU, Dr. Jamie Spiegelman has seen firsthand the myriad of ways COVID-19 can bombard the human body.
This is not just a respiratory illness. It starts as a respiratory illness. We've seen heart failure from it. We've seen kidney failure from it. It affects every organ, so it's clearly a systemic disease.
Studies in the U.S. and the U.K. suggest more than a third of COVID-19 patients who end up in ICU experience kidney failure.
What we've noticed in our ICU is patients that go on dialysis who get renal failure from this have way worse outcomes. Most of those patients, from our experience, die.
It's as dramatic a range as that. Some get only mildly ill, others die. It's a mystery why in some people the virus drives the immune system into overdrive. The body starts to attack its own cells.
So we know that most of the sickness of the things that kill you or make you very, very sick is actually your body responding. So your immune response to this assault on your system is the thing that makes you go to the hospital, the cytokine storm, we call it.
And for those who make it through, there could be lasting harm.
But we have been discovering that when COVID is able to really get into you systemically, it causes damage in the heart, it causes damage in the liver, it causes damage in the kidneys.
It's why testing people already dealing with other diseases is vitally important.
And this is also why you're seeing now more rigorous testing in populations, certainly in the populations of people that have kidney disease that are dialysis patients.
Where is the virus headed? How is it mutating?
We don't know its mutation rate, really, and in fact, if it's mutating in one direction or another.
All viruses mutate. The mystery is, what's the novel coronavirus doing? How fast is it changing? And could it become more dangerous or less?
It mutates less frequently than the influenza virus. On average, I've seen estimates of 1 to 2 mutations per month. And these mutations are important to track.
Early signs are tending to the positive.
The good news is we haven't seen any mutations so far that make it seem to suggest that the virus is becoming more lethal.
In this respect, the forces of evolution might lean in our favor.
The nature of mutation is that selective pressures put upon it by the environment determine which mutations thrive. So there is a theory, these pathogens mutate towards lesser lethality.
When can we assume we are immune to it? Or can we? In the absence of a vaccine, immunity is emerging as a potential key to resuming normal life. It's hoped those who have had COVID-19 are now immune to it, but that's all it is, hope. There is no evidence.
I'd really love to hear more about the immunology behind this and how effective are immune responses in people who've been infected? How durable are they? So how long do they last?
Why? Why are some people hit hard by it and others barely get sick?
Some people do well and recover and not get that sick, whereas other people might get very, very sick with this infection, who otherwise are of the same age.
Men seem more vulnerable. Children seem less so, though some are developing a mysterious multi-system inflammatory syndrome. We've seen centenarians survive and healthy young adults succumb.
Why are these people not symptomatic and why other people are so symptomatic that they end up on life support machines in the ICU? So we don't completely understand that as well. It's not like the virus is any different, so there must be some genetic predisposition.
Scientists are searching for genetic signs that might help explain the extreme variations in vulnerability. One study zeroed in on regions of the human genome that could be associated with a higher risk of respiratory failure. The same study found a 50% increase in patients with type A blood were in need of oxygen or a ventilator.
I've heard one person call this the dark matter of immunity. Why have some populations been resistant and others have been explosive? It's not just about the age demographic. And this might be a good thing. It might mean that we reach herd immunity sooner. It might mean that the ceiling for explosiveness of this disease is lower than we thought. But again, it's a mystery.
How? How will this end? Or are we going to be living with the novel coronavirus for a long time? No one alive today has lived through a pandemic like this. We're not used to such uncertainty, unable to plan for the next month, the next year. We will adapt, and we will keep learning.
I don't expect to be afraid of this disease by this time next year. That won't be because of a vaccine. It'll just be because we will know better how to treat it, and people need not die of it at the same rate that they're dying now.
Maybe it will turn out better than we feared, but we need to confront the possibility some things may turn out worse than we hoped. This Chicago woman in her 20s recovered from COVID-19, but it devastated her lungs, and she underwent a double lung transplant. Which raises another lingering question.
Is what happens when you're infected and you get serious disease and you recover? What are the long-term, durable negative effects of that infection? We don't have enough experience because we've only been involved in 4 months.